The environmental control panel beeped 3 times before Taman even reached the alien delegation quarters. He shifted his toolbox to his other hand and checked his tablet again. The life support system was failing in Section 7, and if he didn't fix it soon, the Thalreen visitors would be breathing air that felt like sandpaper in their lungs. He pressed the door chime and waited. The door slid open to reveal a being unlike anything he had seen in person before. She stood almost his height, but that was where any similarity to humans ended. Her body was covered in smooth chitinous plates that gleamed deep violet under the station lights. 4 arms extended from her torso, 2 primary and 2 secondary, all moving with careful precision. Her head was elegant and angular, with large compound eyes that caught the light like fractured gold. "You are the engineer?" Her voice came through a translator, soft and musical despite the mechanical overlay. "Yes. I'm Taman. I'm here to fix your environmental system." He tried not to stare, but it was difficult. The way the light played across her plating reminded him of oil on water, shifting between purple and deep blue. She stepped aside quickly, her secondary arms folding close to her body. "Please, come in. I apologize for the malfunction. I may have adjusted something I should not have touched." Taman walked inside and set down his toolbox. The quarters were sparse, with few personal items visible. "Don't worry about it. These systems are touchy. Even I mess them up sometimes." He moved to the control panel and began running diagnostics. The alien stood several feet away, watching him work. Her antennae twitched occasionally, and her secondary hands clasped and unclasped nervously. "I'm Vela," she said after a moment of silence. "I am a cultural liaison for the Thalreen delegation." "Nice to meet you, Vela." Taman glanced at her and smiled. "How are you finding the station so far?" "It is very different from home. The gravity is lighter. The air tastes strange." She paused. "But not unpleasant. Just different." Taman nodded as he worked. "What's the air like on your world?" "I can adjust the mix if you want, make it more comfortable." Vela's antennae perked up slightly. "You can do that?" "Sure, that's what I'm here for." He pulled up the atmospheric controls. "Tell me what you need." She moved closer, her nervousness seeming to ease slightly. "Our atmosphere has more nitrogen and less oxygen than yours. The humidity should be higher, around 70%, and the temperature should be warmer." Taman input the changes, his fingers moving quickly across the interface. "Like this?" Vela leaned in to look at the screen. She was close enough now that he could see the fine patterns etched into her plating, delicate lines that reminded him of traditional Korean pottery. "Yes, exactly like that." "Done." He pressed the confirmation button. "Give it a few minutes to adjust. You should feel more comfortable soon." "Thank you." Vela took a step back, her secondary arms unfolding slightly before she caught herself and tucked them in again. "You did not have to do that." "Of course I did. You're a guest here." Taman started packing up his tools. "Besides, if you're comfortable, you can focus on your work instead of thinking about breathing." Vela tilted her head in a way that seemed thoughtful. "That is very considerate." Taman shrugged. "Just doing my job." "Still, many humans have been polite, but you are the first to ask what I needed rather than what you thought I needed." Her compound eyes reflected the light, making them look like they were filled with tiny stars. He paused, tool in hand. "What do you mean?" "When we arrived, the station adjusted our quarters based on data about Thalreen biology. But the data was from other Thalreen worlds, not mine. Every world in our system has slightly different atmospheric preferences. No one asked me specifically." She gestured with one of her primary hands. "You asked." Taman felt something warm in his chest at her words. "Well, you're the one who has to live here. Makes sense to ask you." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Vela's antennae were now pointed forward, which Taman somehow sensed was a positive sign. "Can I ask you something?" Taman said. "Of course." "Your plating, the color, is it common among your people?" Vela's entire body seemed to stiffen. Her secondary arms pressed tight against her sides again. "No, it is not common. Most Thalreen have lighter plating, silver or pale blue. Mine is considered dark." Taman heard something in her tone, a heaviness that made him choose his next words carefully. "I think it's beautiful, the way it catches the light. It reminds me of deep water or the night sky." Vela was very still. "You think it is beautiful?" "Yeah," he said it simply, honestly. "I do." Her antennae quivered. "That is kind of you to say." "I'm not being kind. I mean it." Taman picked up his toolbox. "I should let you get back to work. But if you have any other problems with the environmental system, just call. I'll come fix it." "Thank you, Taman." Vela walked him to the door. "I appreciate your help." He stepped into the corridor and turned back. "No problem. Welcome to the station, Vela." The door slid closed, and Taman stood there for a moment, thinking. He had seen pictures of the Thalreen before the delegation arrived in briefings and news reports. But seeing Vela in person was completely different. The way she moved was fluid and precise, like a dancer who knew exactly where every part of her body was at all times. And her eyes, those compound eyes, held an intelligence and warmth that no photo could capture. He shook his head and started walking back to the engineering bay. It was just a service call, nothing special. But as he walked, he found himself hoping the environmental system would need another adjustment soon. Back in her quarters, Vela stood by the window looking out at the stars. The air now tasted like home, warm and humid and right. But that wasn't what occupied her thoughts. He called her beautiful. Not her work, not her position, but her. Her dark plating that every Thalreen she knew had pitied or criticized. The human engineer with the kind smile had looked at her and seen beauty. She touched her secondary hand to the place where her primary heart beat beneath her plating. It was foolish to let such a simple comment affect her so much. He was probably just being polite, using the sort of empty pleasantries humans were known for. But his eyes had been sincere, and he had asked what she needed, not what he assumed she needed. Vela turned away from the window and tried to focus on her work. The delegation would only be on the station for a short time. There was no point in thinking about a kind human engineer who saw beauty in things that others overlooked. Still, when she settled down to prepare her reports, she found herself hoping the environmental system would malfunction again. 3 days later, Taman found himself back at the alien delegation quarters. He told himself it was a routine follow-up check. Environmental systems often needed fine-tuning after the initial repair. It was completely normal engineering protocol. It had nothing to do with wanting to see Vela again. She opened the door almost immediately when he chimed as if she had been nearby. "Taman, hello." "Hi, I'm here to check on the environmental system. Make sure everything is running smoothly." He held up his tablet like evidence. "Oh, yes, please come in." She stepped aside, and he noticed her secondary arms weren't tucked quite as tightly as before. "Everything has been working well. Very comfortable." "Good, but I should still run a diagnostic, just to be safe." He moved to the control panel, very aware of her presence behind him. The system was running perfectly. There was absolutely nothing wrong with it. Taman stared at the readings and felt like a fraud. "Is something wrong?" Vela asked, moving closer. "No, everything looks good." He turned to face her. "Actually, everything looks perfect. You shouldn't have any problems." "That is good news." She seemed to hesitate. "Would you like some water? Or tea? I have been learning about human hospitality customs." Taman smiled. "Tea would be nice." "Thank you." He sat in one of the chairs while Vela prepared tea with her 4 hands working in coordination. It was mesmerizing to watch. 2 hands held the pot while the others arranged cups and added water. The movements were so smooth, they looked choreographed. "I have been studying human culture," Vela said as she handed him a cup. "There is so much I do not understand yet." "Like what?" Taemin accepted the tea, their fingers nearly touching for a moment. Vela sat across from him, carefully arranging her limbs. "Your concept of friendship. Among Thalreen, friendships are formed based on shared function and purpose, but humans seem to become friends for many different reasons, sometimes for no reason at all." "I guess we do. Sometimes you just meet someone and you click." He sipped the tea. It was perfectly brewed. "Click?" Vela's antennae tilted in confusion. "Sorry. It means you connect with them. You enjoy their company." Taemin set down his cup. "Like how I enjoy talking to you." Her antennae quivered. "You do?" "Yeah. You're interesting. You ask good questions and you actually listen to the answers." He leaned back in his chair. "Plus, you make good tea." Vela made a sound that might have been a laugh, though the translator struggled to render it. "I am glad. I was worried that my company might be unsettling to humans." "Unsettling? Why would you think that?" She looked down at her hands, all 4 of them. "We were told before coming here that humans might find us frightening. Our appearance is very different from yours. We were instructed to minimize our movements and keep our secondary arms hidden when possible, to avoid causing discomfort." Taemin felt a flash of anger, though not at her. "That's ridiculous. You shouldn't have to hide parts of yourself." "You do not find it strange, having 4 arms?" "I find it practical. You can carry more things, multitask better." He grinned. "I'm jealous, actually. Do you know how many times I've needed a 3rd hand while working?" This time, the sound she made was definitely a laugh. "I never thought of it as an advantage. Just as another way I am different." "Different isn't bad. Different is just different." Taemin picked up his tea again. "Can I ask you something? About your home?" "Yes. Of course. What's it like? Your world?" Vela's entire posture changed, becoming more animated. "It is beautiful. We have 3 moons, and when they align, the night sky glows silver. Our cities are built into cliff faces and underground to protect us from the day heat. There are gardens everywhere filled with bioluminescent plants that light up when touched." "That sounds amazing." Taemin watched her face as she spoke. Her compound eyes seemed to shimmer more brightly when she was happy. "It is. I miss it sometimes." She paused. "But I wanted to leave, too. That is why I volunteered for this assignment." "Why did you want to leave?" Vela was quiet for a moment. "Because there, I was always wrong. My coloring is wrong. My thoughts are wrong. I ask too many questions. I want to see too much of the universe." She looked at him. "Here, I can be curious without judgment." "You should always be able to be curious." Taemin said it firmly. "There's nothing wrong with wanting to learn and explore." "Thank you for saying that." They talked for another hour. Vela asked about Earth, and Taemin told her about Sol, about mountains and oceans and cities that glowed at night. He found himself telling her things he hadn't thought about in years, like how he used to paint and how his family had wanted him to be practical instead. "But engineering is creative too," Vela said. "You solve problems. You build things that did not exist before." "I guess you're right. I never thought of it that way." He checked the time and was surprised to see how late it had gotten. "I should go. I have another shift starting soon." "Of course. Thank you for checking the system." "And for the conversation." Vela stood, walking him to the door. "Any time." Taemin picked up his toolbox, then hesitated. "Hey, if you ever want to know more about the station or about humans, you can call me. Not just for engineering stuff." Her antennae pointed directly at him, fully forward now. I would like that very much. Over the next 2 weeks, Taman found many reasons to visit the alien quarters. A pressure valve that needed adjusting, a temperature sensor that seemed off, a humidity control that was making odd noises. Each time, the problem took longer to fix than it should have, and each time, he and Vela talked. He learned that she loved music, even though Thalreen music was nothing like human music. She learned that he had a younger sister named Jiwoo who worked on a colony ship. He discovered that Vela's favorite color was green because it reminded her of growing things. She found out that Taman could sketch surprisingly well and convinced him to draw one of the station's viewports. His friend Hyun, a botanist who worked in the station's agricultural section, noticed the change in him. "You're humming," Hyun said one day in the cafeteria. "So?" Taman ate his lunch without looking up. "You never hum. What's going on?" "Nothing. I'm just in a good mood." Hyun studied him with the intensity she usually reserved for her plants. "This wouldn't have anything to do with the Thalreen liaison, would it? I heard you've been spending a lot of time in that section." "I'm doing my job. The environmental systems need regular maintenance." "Right. Regular maintenance." Hyun smirked. "Nothing to do with the fact that she's interesting and you light up whenever someone mentions the delegation." Taman finally looked at his friend. "Is it that obvious?" "To me? Yes. To everyone else? Probably not." She leaned forward. "So, tell me about her." He did. He told Hyun about Vela's curiosity, her intelligence, the way she moved like water. He talked about their conversations and how easy it was to talk to her. "You like her," Hyun said when he finished. "As a friend." "Taman, I've known you for 5 years. You don't visit friends this much." She paused. "There's nothing wrong with liking her as more than a friend, you know. She's not human." "So?" "This is 2247, not 1947. People have relationships with other species all the time." Hyun shrugged. "The question is, does she like you back?" Taman thought about the way Vela's antennae perked up when he arrived, the way she always had tea ready, as if expecting him, the sound of her laugh, which the translator had stopped trying to render mechanically and now just let through as pure Vela. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I think maybe she does." "Then maybe you should do something about it." Hyun stood up, taking her tray. Life's too short to wonder what if. That evening, Taman went back to the alien quarters, not because of the environmental system, just because he wanted to see Vela. She opened the door and her whole body seemed to brighten. "Taman, I was hoping you would visit today." "Yeah?" His heart beat faster. "Why's that?" "Because I finished my report on human social customs, and I wanted to ask you if I understood correctly." She gestured him inside. "And because I enjoy your company." Taman smiled as he walked in. "I enjoy your company too, Vela." And for the first time, neither of them pretended it was about the environmental system. The station was decorated with lights and banners from a dozen different worlds. The annual Unity Festival was the biggest event of the year, a celebration of the alliance between species. Every corridor had been transformed with colors and sounds and smells from across known space. Taman stood outside the alien delegation quarters, nervous in a way he hadn't been since he was a teenager. He had spent 20 minutes deciding what to wear, which was ridiculous. It was just a festival, just a casual invitation to a friend. Except Vela wasn't just a friend anymore, was she? He pressed the chime before he could talk himself out of it. Vela opened the door and Taman forgot how to breathe for a moment. She had decorated her plating with delicate silver patterns, traditional Thalreen art that swirled across her violet chiton like frost on a window. Her compound eyes seemed brighter somehow, catching the hallway lights. "Hi," he managed. "You look beautiful." Her antennae quivered. "Thank you." This is traditional for festivals on my world. I was not sure if it would be appropriate here. It's perfect, he found his voice again. Are you ready to go? I think so. I am nervous. She stepped into the corridor, all four hands fidgeting. I have not attended a large gathering with humans before. You'll be fine. And I'll be right there with you. He wanted to take her hand, but wasn't sure if that would be welcome. If you get uncomfortable, we can leave any time. They walked toward the main plaza where the festival was being held. The sounds of music and laughter grew louder with each step. Vela moved closer to Taman, her secondary arms tucked tight against her body. The plaza was packed with people and aliens from across the station. Human children ran between the stalls while Regelian merchants displayed their wares. A group of centaurians performed a traditional dance, their crystalline bodies refracting light in rainbow patterns. There are so many people, Vela whispered. Yeah, but look, there are lots of different species here. You're not the only non-human. Taman pointed out a family of Andromedans browsing a food stall. Come on, let's get something to eat. They made their way through the crowd. Taman noticed people staring at Vela, but most of the looks seemed curious rather than hostile. A few children pointed and their parents smiled, explaining about the Thalreen visitors. At the food court, Taman ran into Hayun, who was carrying a plate piled high with various dishes. Taman, you made it! Hayun's eyes went to Vela and she grinned. And you must be Vela. I'm Hayun. I work with the plants around here. Vela's antennae perked up with interest. Plants? What kind of plants? Oh, you know, standard crops, some experimental hybrids, a few alien species I'm trying to adapt to station conditions. Hayun gestured enthusiastically with her free hand. Do you have much agriculture on your world? Yes, very much. We grow most of our food underground, using bioluminescent fungi to provide light. Vela unfolded her secondary arm slightly as she warmed to the topic. The fungi create a symbiotic relationship with the plant roots. That's fascinating. I've read about that technique but never talked to someone who grew up with it. Hayun turned to Taman. I like her. Don't mess this up. Hayun, Taman said, embarrassed. What? I'm just saying. She winked at Vela. You two have fun. Vela, come by the greenhouses sometime. I'd love to show you what we're working on. As Hayun disappeared into the crowd, Vela turned to Taman. She is very enthusiastic. That's one word for it. Taman smiled. But she's a good friend, and she means it about the greenhouses. She'd talk to you about plants for hours if you let her. I would enjoy that. Vela looked around the plaza, her posture less tense than before. Your friend is kind. They spent the next hour exploring the festival. Taman introduced Vela to foods from Earth, Korean rice cakes and dumplings that made her antennae flutter with pleasure. She tried candied fruit from a Martian colony and declared it the best thing she had ever tasted. They watched performers from 3 different worlds and browsed stalls selling art and crafts. Then the music changed. A human band took the stage, playing something with a strong rhythm and melody. People began moving to the music, dancing in the open space in front of the stage. Taman saw Vela swaying almost imperceptibly, her body responding to the rhythm. Do you want to dance? He asked. She stopped moving immediately. I do not know human dances. Neither do most of the people out there. Look. He gestured at the crowd. Everyone's just moving how they want to. There's no right or wrong way. But I would look strange. The way Thalreen move is different from humans. So? You'd look different, not strange. There's a Centaurian out there spinning in circles and everyone thinks it's great. He held out his hand. Dance with me, Vela. Please? She looked at his hand, then at his face. Her antennae tilted forward in a way he had come to recognize as her thinking carefully about something. Okay, she said quietly, and placed one of her primary hands in his. Her chitin was smooth and warm under his fingers. Taman led her onto the dance floor, his heart pounding. He had no idea how to dance with someone who had 4 arms and a completely different body structure. But Hayun was right. Life was too short for what-ifs. They started moving to the music. It was awkward at first. Vela kept her movements small and controlled, clearly self-conscious. But Taman kept dancing, kept smiling at her, and gradually she began to relax. And then something amazing happened. Vela started to really dance. She used all 4 arms, creating patterns in the air that human dancers could never achieve. Her movements were fluid and precise, each gesture flowing into the next like water. The silver decorations on her plating caught the light as she moved, making her look like she was covered in stars. People nearby stopped to watch, not with disgust or fear, but with wonder. Taman found himself moving with her, trying to match her rhythm. It wasn't a human dance or a Thalreen dance. It was something new, something theirs. The song ended, and another began. They kept dancing. Vela's antennae were fully forward now, her body language completely open. She was smiling, if the way her mandibles moved could be called a smile. "You move like water," Taman said, slightly breathless. "Water?" She didn't understand, but she heard something in his voice that made her antennae quiver. Graceful, flowing, beautiful. They were very close now, swaying together more than actually dancing. Around them, the crowd had returned to their own dancing, but Taman was only aware of Vela. "I was afraid to come tonight," she admitted. "Afraid that humans would stare at me, that they would be afraid or disgusted." "They are staring," Taman said honestly. "But not because they're disgusted. They're staring because you're amazing." "You really think so?" "I know so." He wanted to touch her face, to brush his fingers along the delicate patterns she had painted there. But he held back, not wanting to presume. "Thank you for coming with me tonight. Thank you for asking me." She moved one of her secondary hands, hesitated, then gently touched his arm. It was the first time she had initiated physical contact. "I have never felt so welcomed anywhere outside my home, and sometimes not even there." "Then they're fools. Anyone who made you feel unwelcome was a fool." The music shifted to something slower, and the crowd thinned slightly. Taman and Vela stood together at the edge of the dance floor, not quite dancing anymore, but not ready to leave either. "Taman," Vela said softly, "can I tell you something?" "Of course. These past weeks, talking to you, spending time with you have been the happiest I can remember. You make me feel like it is okay to be myself, like my differentness is not a flaw." His chest felt tight. "That's because it isn't a flaw, Vela. It's what makes you yourself." She looked at him with those compound golden eyes, and he saw something in them he hadn't seen before, something that made his breath catch. "I am glad we met," she whispered. "So am I." They stayed at the festival for another hour, but Taman would later remember very little of it. All he could think about was the feeling of Vela's hand in his, the sound of her laughter, and the way she had looked at him on the dance floor. When he finally walked her back to her quarters, they stopped outside her door. "I had a wonderful time," Vela said. "Me too." Taman didn't want the night to end. "Maybe we could do this again? Not wait for a festival, I mean. Just spend time together." "I would like that very much." She touched his hand briefly with one of her secondary hands, a gesture he was starting to recognize as affection. Then she went inside, and Taman walked back to his own quarters with a smile he couldn't wipe off his face. Behind her door, Vela touched her hand to her chest, feeling her heart's beat faster than normal. She had danced in front of dozens of humans, and they had not looked at her with fear. Taman had called her beautiful and graceful and amazing. Maybe, she thought, maybe she could allow herself to hope. Just a little. Just enough to imagine what might come next. The station ran on a 24-hour cycle, mimicking Earth time for the human majority. During what was designated as night, the main corridors dimmed and most of the crew slept. But Taman had never been good at sleeping when his mind was too full of thoughts. He found himself walking toward the observation deck, a quiet place where he often went when he needed to think. The deck was a large room with floor-to-ceiling windows looking out into space. During the day, it was crowded with tourists and off-duty crew. At night, it was usually empty. Usually. Tonight, a solitary figure stood at the main window, 4 arms pressed against the glass, looking out at the stars. "Vela?" She turned quickly, her antennae twitching in surprise. "Taman? I did not expect to see anyone here." "I could say the same thing." He walked over to stand beside her. "Can't sleep?" "No. On my world, I would often stay awake during the sleep cycle. I liked the quiet." She turned back to the window. "Do you come here often? When I need to clear my head?" He looked out at the endless darkness scattered with distant stars. "What are you thinking about?" Vela was quiet for a long moment. "Home. The delegation will be leaving soon. 3 weeks, maybe 4. The words hit Taman like a physical blow. He had known the delegation wouldn't stay forever, but he had pushed the thought away, not wanting to face it. "So soon? Our mission is almost complete. We have established trade agreements and cultural exchange programs. There is no reason to stay longer." Her voice was carefully neutral, but her antennae drooped slightly. "Right. Of course." Taman tried to match her neutral tone and failed. "Will you go back with them?" "That is what is expected. I am part of the delegation." They stood in silence, the weight of unspoken words heavy between them. Outside, a small ship passed by, its lights blinking in the darkness. "Can I tell you something?" Vela said suddenly. "Something I have not told anyone here?" "Always." She moved away from the window, pacing slightly. All 4 hands moved as she spoke, a sign of agitation. "I requested this posting to escape my homeworld, not just to explore or learn, to escape." "Escape what?" "Judgment, expectations, the constant feeling of being wrong." She stopped pacing and looked at him. "My coloring is considered a flaw among my people. Too dark, too deep. The preferred shade is pale silver, like moonlight. Mine is like deep water or storm clouds. I have been told my entire life that I am ugly." Taman felt anger rise in his chest. "That's ridiculous. You're not ugly." "By Thalreen standards, I am. When I was young, my clutch mates would not play with me. When I grew older, potential mates would not even consider me. The darker coloring is seen as a genetic weakness, something to be bred out." Her voice was steady, but he could hear the pain beneath it. "I learned to make myself useful instead. I studied harder than anyone else. I became the best cultural liaison I could be. Because if I could not be beautiful, at least I could be competent." Vela. He didn't know what to say. How could he possibly make this better? "And then I came here, and you looked at me and called me beautiful. And I did not know how to believe you." She turned to face him fully. "How could you think I am beautiful when everyone who shares my biology has told me I am not?" Taman moved closer to her. "Because beauty isn't objective. It's not some universal truth that everyone agrees on. What your people value isn't what I value." "Then what do you value?" He thought about it, trying to find the right words. "When I look at you, I see the way light moves across your plating like water. I see grace in how you move, intelligence in your eyes. I see someone who asks questions and listens to answers. Someone who's brave enough to leave everything familiar and explore the unknown." He paused. I see someone I want to spend every free moment with. Someone who makes me laugh and makes me think. That's what I see when I look at you." Vela's antennae were trembling. "I do not know how to process that." "You don't have to process it. Just believe it." He took a small step closer. "Your people were wrong about you, Vela. You're not ugly. You're extraordinary." She made a sound that might have been a sob, if Thalreen could sob. "I want to believe you." "Then try. Please try." They stood close now, close enough that Taman could see the fine details of her face, the way her compound eyes reflected his image 1,000 times over. "Can I tell you something now?" he asked. "Yes. Before I became an engineer, I wanted to be an artist. I spent all my free time drawing and painting. My teacher said I had talent." He looked away, out at the stars. "But my family said art wasn't practical, that I needed a real career, something stable. So I studied engineering instead, and I told myself they were right, that I was being childish. But you were not childish. You had a passion." "Yeah. But I let other people's opinions matter more than my own feelings." He looked back at her. "I gave up something I loved because I was told it was wrong, and I've regretted it ever since." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I don't want you to do the same thing. I don't want you to believe the people who told you that you were wrong, that you were ugly, that you needed to hide parts of yourself." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he gently touched one of her secondary hands. "You're amazing exactly as you are." Her hand wrapped around his fingers, warm and solid. "I am not beautiful like human women," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I am not soft or small or delicate. I have chitin instead of skin, and 4 arms instead of 2, and eyes that do not even see the same spectrum as yours." "You're right," Taman said softly, and she flinched. He squeezed her hand gently. "You're not beautiful like human women. You're beautiful like yourself, like Vela. And that's better than any standard of beauty anyone else could set." She stared at him, her entire body very still. "You cannot mean that." "But I do. I really, really do." He raised his other hand slowly and touched the edge of her faceplate, marveling at the smooth texture. "Every time I see you, I think about how lucky I am that you answered your door that first day, that you gave me a chance to know you." "Taman." His name sounded different in her voice, special somehow. "I do not know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." But he hoped she would. He hoped she felt even a fraction of what he felt. "I think," she said slowly, "that I have been happier these past weeks than I have been in years, maybe ever. And I think it is because of you." Her antennae pointed directly at him, fully forward. "When I am with you, I forget to be afraid. I forget to hide. You make me feel like I can be myself. You can always be yourself with me. Always." They stood like that, hands clasped, looking at each other in the dim light of the observation deck. Outside, the universe turned, vast and endless and full of possibilities. "What are we doing?" Vela asked quietly. "You are human. I am Thalreen. This cannot work." "Why not?" "Because we are too different. Because my people would never accept it. Because I will have to leave soon and you will stay here." "Those are all problems, yes. But they're not impossible problems." Taman stepped even closer. "Unless you don't want this. Unless I've misread everything and you don't feel the way I feel." "How do you feel?" He took a breath. This was it. The moment where he either said it or spent the rest of his life wondering what if. "I'm falling in love with you, Vela. Maybe I've already fallen. I don't know when it happened, but it did. And I know it's complicated and scary and probably crazy, but it's true." Her antennae quivered wildly. Her hands, all 4 of them, were shaking. "You love me?" "Yes." But I am not what you should want. I am alien and strange and wrong. You're not wrong. You're perfect. Perfect for me anyway. He smiled, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might break through his chest. But I need to know. How do you feel? Vela looked at him with those golden compound eyes, and when she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. I feel terrified. I feel like I am standing at the edge of a cliff. But I also feel alive in a way I have never felt before. She tightened her grip on his hand. I think I love you too, Taman. And it frightens me how much I love you. He laughed, the sound breaking free like something had opened up inside his chest. Yeah, it's pretty terrifying. What do we do now? I don't know. Figure it out together, maybe? He raised her hand to his lips and kissed her smooth chitin gently. One step at a time. She made a sound of wonder, her free hands reaching up to touch his face, exploring gently. This is real. You are real. Very real, and very in love with you. They stayed on the observation deck until the station's morning cycle began, talking about everything and nothing, about fears and hopes and possibilities, about what came next. Neither of them had answers, but for the first time they didn't feel alone in their questions. The announcement came during breakfast. Taman was eating with Hayun in the cafeteria when the message scrolled across the public displays. The Thalreen delegation would be departing in 10 days. All final trade agreements and cultural exchange documents needed to be submitted within the week. 10 days. Taman put down his fork, suddenly not hungry. Hey! Hayun touched his arm. Have you talked to her about what happens next? We've talked around it. But we haven't made any real decisions. He pushed his food around his plate. I don't know what to do. Do you love her? Yes. No hesitation. That was the one thing he was completely sure of. Does she love you? She says she does. Then figure it out. Long-distance relationships exist. Transfer requests exist. There are options. Hayun squeezed his arm. Don't give up before you even try. But trying was harder than it sounded. Over the next few days, Taman barely saw Vela. The delegation was frantically busy with final preparations and reports. When they did manage to meet, it was only for a few stolen minutes in corridors or brief conversations over communicators. And Vela seemed different, distant, like she was pulling away. On the 4th day, Taman went to her quarters during his lunch break. She answered the door but didn't invite him in immediately. Is everything okay? He asked. Yes. I am just very busy. Her antennae were neutral, giving nothing away. Can I come in, just for a few minutes? She hesitated, then stepped aside. Of course. The room was different. More packed up, more sterile. Personal items had been put away. It looked like she was erasing herself from the space. Vela, we need to talk. About what happens when you leave. I know. She wouldn't look at him, but I do not know what to say. Say you'll come back, or say you'll request a transfer to work with human stations, or say I can come visit you on your world. He moved closer. Say something that isn't goodbye. She turned away, all 4 hands clasped together. It is not that simple. Why not? Because my people would not understand. A Thalreen in a relationship with a human. It would be seen as scandalous, shameful. My family would be humiliated. Since when do you care what they think? You said yourself that you came here to escape their judgment. I said I came here to escape. I did not say I stopped caring. Her voice was strained. They are still my family, Taman, my people. He felt like she was slipping away and he didn't know how to hold on. What about us? I do not know. Finally, she looked at him and her eyes were full of pain. I do not know what to do. Before he could respond, the door chimed. Vela moved to answer it, and Taman saw a Thalreen he recognized as Kelris, one of the senior diplomats in the delegation. Kelris spoke in the Thalreen language, too fast for the translator to catch everything, but Taman heard his name mentioned, and he saw the way Kelris looked at him, not with hostility exactly, but with something that might have been concern. "I should go," Taman said. "Let you get back to work." Vela nodded, not meeting his eyes. "I will call you later." But she didn't call, that night, or the next day, or the day after that. Taman tried to focus on work, but it was impossible. He went through the motions of his job while his mind spun in circles. Had he pushed too hard? Had he misread everything? Had she decided he wasn't worth the complications? Hayun found him in the engineering bay on the 6th day, staring at a perfectly functional control panel. "Okay, that's it. You look terrible. What happened?" "She's avoiding me." The words came out flat. "She won't answer my calls. When I go to her quarters, she says she's too busy to talk." "Did you have a fight?" "No. We just talked about the future and she got scared." He finally looked at Hayun. "One of her delegation leaders saw me at her quarters. I think he said something to her." Hayun frowned. "Like what?" "I don't know, but after that everything changed." "Have you asked her what he said?" "She won't talk to me long enough for me to ask." "Then make her talk to you. Go to her quarters and don't leave until she explains what's going on." Hayun's voice was firm. "You deserve to know, Taman. Even if it's bad news, you deserve to know." But before Taman could act on that advice, Hayun grabbed his arm and pulled him aside. "Wait, before you go charging in there, I need to ask you something." She looked at him seriously. "Are you in love with Vela because she's Vela? Or are you in love with the idea of her, with how different and new she is?" Taman stiffened. "What kind of question is that?" "An important one, because if you're just fascinated by something exotic, that's not fair to her. She deserves someone who loves her for who she is, not what she is." "I know that." But even as he said it, he felt a cold twist of doubt. Did he know that? Had he really thought this through? He went back to his quarters that night and sat at his desk, pulling out his old sketch pad. He hadn't drawn seriously in years, but his hands remembered the motions. He started sketching from memory. Vela's face took shape on the page, the elegant angles of her chitin plates, the way her antennae curved when she was happy, her 4 hands, so graceful and expressive. He drew her laughing, her mandibles relaxed. He drew her listening, antennae forward with interest. As he drew, he thought about what he loved about her. Was it the fact that she was alien, or was it something deeper? He thought about their conversations, how she challenged his assumptions and made him think about things in new ways. He remembered her curiosity, her intelligence, the way she saw beauty in things others overlooked. He thought about how safe he felt, telling her about his abandoned art, how she had listened without judgment. He loved her kindness, her bravery, the way she tried so hard to understand human customs, not to judge them, but to genuinely comprehend them. He loved her laugh, even filtered through a translator. He loved the way she moved, yes, but he also loved the way she thought. Taman looked down at his sketches, page after page of Vela, each one trying to capture not just what she looked like, but who she was. He loved her, not because she was Thalreen, not because she was different, but because she was Vela, and Vela was extraordinary in ways that had nothing to do with her biology. The next morning, he went to her quarters. He was prepared to wait outside all day if necessary. But when he arrived, he found Kelris standing in the corridor, as if waiting for him. "Engineer Taman," Kelris said in careful English. "May I speak with you?" "Is Vela inside?" "No. She is at a meeting. But I wanted to talk to you first." Kelris gestured to a nearby seating area. "Please." They sat. Taman felt his stomach twist with anxiety. "I owe you an apology," Kelris said, which was not what Taman expected. "When I saw you with Vela, I reacted badly. I told her that humans often collect alien companions as curiosities, that you might not truly care for her." Anger flared in Taman's chest. "You told her I was using her?" "I told her to be careful, to protect herself." Kelris's antennae drooped. "I was wrong to interfere, but I was also trying to protect her from being hurt. Why would I hurt her? Not intentionally, but Vela has been hurt before, many times by our own people. She is stronger than she believes, but also more fragile." Kelris looked at him directly. "I have known her since she was young. She was always the one asking questions, wanting to see beyond our world, and she was always punished for it, in small ways and large. When I saw her with you, happy in a way I had never seen her, I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" "That it would not last. That you would break her heart, and she would never recover." Kelris paused. "I spoke from my own experience. I once knew someone from another species, someone I cared for deeply. But I was afraid of what others would think, of the complications. So I ended it before it truly began. And I have regretted it every day since." Taman felt his anger deflate slightly. "So you told Vela to be afraid too?" "Yes. And I was wrong. Because fear is not protection. It is only a different kind of cage." Kelris stood. "She loves you. I can see that clearly. And I think you love her too. The question is whether you both have the courage to fight for that love." "I do," Taman said firmly. "I'm ready to fight for her." "Then you should tell her that, not me." Kelris walked toward the door, then paused. "One more thing. If you hurt her, engineer or not, I will find a way to make you regret it." "Understood." Taman almost smiled. "But I won't hurt her. Not if I can help it." After Kelris left, Taman sat alone in the corridor, thinking. Vela was afraid. That made sense. He was terrified too. But fear wasn't a good enough reason to give up on something this important. He pulled out his communicator and sent a message. Simple and direct. "I love you. Please talk to me." Then he waited, hoping she would have the courage to answer. The station gardens were quiet during the afternoon shift. Most people were working, and the few who had free time usually went to the observation decks or recreation areas. The gardens were a hidden treasure that only a few people knew about, a place where earth plants grew under artificial sun, creating a small piece of home in the metal confines of the station. Taman found Vela there, sitting on a bench surrounded by ferns and flowering plants. She had her tablet out, supposedly working on reports, but she wasn't looking at the screen. She was just sitting, very still, her antennae drooped low. "Hi," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. She looked up, and he saw something that broke his heart. She looked tired, sad, like the weight of the universe was pressing down on her shoulders. "Taman, I got your message." "Can I sit with you?" She nodded, shifting to make room on the bench. He sat down, maintaining a careful distance. He wanted to reach for her hand, but didn't want to push. They sat in silence for a moment, surrounded by the quiet rustling of leaves and the hum of the environmental systems. "I'm sorry," Vela said finally, "for avoiding you, for not calling back. That was not fair to you." "Why did you do it?" She set down her tablet and folded her hands together, all four of them. "Because I was afraid. Because Kelris told me things that made me doubt, and because leaving is easier than saying goodbye." "What did Kelris tell you?" "That humans sometimes take alien companions as novelties, that the fascination would fade once the newness wore off, that I would be left heartbroken when you realized I was not what you truly wanted." She looked at him. He meant well. He was trying to protect me. He told me. He apologized. Taman shifted slightly closer. But he was wrong, Vela. About me. About us. How can you be sure? Her voice was small. How can you know that what you feel is real and not just curiosity about something different? He had been thinking about this question for days, preparing his answer. Can I show you something? He pulled out his sketch pad from his bag. He had brought it specifically for this, hoping he would get the chance to share it. He opened to the first page and handed it to her. Vela took the sketch pad with careful hands. Her antennae lifted slightly as she looked at the first drawing. It was her, from that first day in her quarters, standing by the environmental panel looking nervous and careful. She turned the page, another drawing of her, this one laughing at something he had said. Then another of her hands preparing tea, another of her at the festival, mid-dance, all four arms creating patterns in the air. Page after page of Vela. Studies of her face from different angles, quick sketches of her gestures, detailed drawings that had taken hours, trying to capture the exact shade of her plating or the way light reflected in her eyes. "You drew these?" she whispered. "Of me?" "I started drawing again because of you. I hadn't picked up a pencil in years, but then I met you, and I couldn't stop seeing you in my mind. I needed to capture it somehow." He watched her face as she slowly turned pages. "Every time I drew you, I thought about what I was trying to show, and it was never just what you looked like. It was who you are." She stopped at a drawing near the end. It was from the observation deck, the night they had confessed their feelings. He had drawn her looking out at the stars, her profile thoughtful and beautiful. "This is how you see me?" she asked. "Yes." "That's exactly how I see you." He took a breath. "When I look at you, I don't see an alien. I don't see a curiosity or a novelty. I see Vela. I see someone brilliant and kind and brave. I see someone who makes me laugh and makes me think. I see someone I want to spend every moment with. But I am so different from you." "So what? My sister is different from me too. Hayun is different from me. Everyone is different from everyone else." He finally reached out and took one of her hands. "What matters is not how we're different. What matters is how we connect despite those differences." Vela clutched the sketch pad with her other hands, her antennae trembling. "I am afraid, Taman. I am afraid that this is too complicated, that we cannot make it work, that I will have to choose between you and my people. I'm afraid too. I'm terrified." He squeezed her hand gently. "But I would rather be afraid with you than safe without you. What if my family disowns me? What if the Thalreen government revokes my credentials? What if I lose everything I have worked for? Then we figure it out together. You wouldn't be alone, Vela. You would have me. You would have Hayun. You would have people here who care about you." He moved closer. "And maybe your family would surprise you. Maybe they would see how happy you are and understand. You do not know my family." "No, but I know you. And I know that you're strong enough to make your own choices, even when they're hard." He raised her hand to his lips and kissed her smooth chitin. "I'm not asking you to give up everything for me. I'm asking you to choose yourself. To choose your own happiness." Tears welled in her compound eyes, something he had never seen before. He didn't know Thalreen could cry. "No one has ever fought for me before," she whispered. "No one has ever told me I deserve to choose my own path." "Then they were all fools. You deserve everything good in the universe, Vela. You deserve to be loved exactly as you are." She set down the sketch pad carefully and turned to face him fully. "I have something to tell you. Something I should have said days ago." "Okay." "When Kelrus warned me about you, part of me wanted to believe him. Not because I truly doubted you, but because it would be easier. If you did not really love me, then I would not have to make hard choices. I could just return home and pretend this never happened. She touched his face with one of her secondary hands, her gesture gentle. But I could not make myself believe it, because every time I tried to doubt you, I remembered the way you looked at me, the way you listened when I spoke, the way you never once made me feel like I needed to be smaller or different or less than I am. You never need to be less than you are. Not for me, not for anyone. I know that now, or I am trying to know it. She took a shaky breath. I love you, Taemin. I love you so much it frightens me. Because love means vulnerability, and vulnerability means the possibility of pain. But I am tired of being afraid. I am tired of letting fear make my choices for me. His heart felt like it might burst. What are you saying? I am saying that I want to fight for this, for us. I do not know how yet, but I want to try. She leaned her forehead against his, a gesture of intimacy among her people. You make me believe that I can be more than what others told me I should be. You make me want to be brave. You're already brave. You've always been brave. He wrapped his arms around her carefully, mindful of her different structure. She folded her forearms around him in return, and it felt perfect. Like all her extra limbs had been designed specifically to hold him better. They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other in the quiet garden, while the artificial sun warmed their skin and chitin. I requested a meeting with the delegation head, Vela said eventually, her voice muffled against his shoulder. I am going to ask for a transfer, to request assignment to human stations as a permanent cultural liaison. Taemin pulled back to look at her. You're serious? Yes. I cannot promise they will approve it. The Thalreen government may refuse, but I have to try. Her antennae were fully forward now, determined. I have spent my whole life doing what was expected of me, trying to make up for being wrong. I am done with that. I am going to choose what I want, and what I want is to be with you. Vela? He cupped her face in his hands. I love you. I love you so much. I love you too. She made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. I cannot believe I am doing this. It is terrifying. Yeah, but we're doing it together, right? Together, she agreed. He kissed her then, or as close to a kiss as their different biology allowed. His lips against the smooth chitin of her face, her mandibles gentle against his skin. It was strange and perfect and entirely theirs. When they finally pulled apart, Vela picked up the sketch pad again, looking through the drawings with wonder. Can I keep these? She asked. They're yours. I drew them for you. Thank you. For seeing me this way. For making me see myself this way. She closed the sketch pad and held it against her chest. No matter what happens with the transfer request, I will treasure these forever. The request will be approved. It has to be. But even as he said it, he felt the cold touch of doubt. What if it wasn't approved? What if she had to leave anyway? Vela seemed to read his thoughts. If they say no, we will find another way. Long-distance relationships exist. Transfer requests can be resubmitted. Where there is a will, there is a way, yes? That is a human saying? Yes, that's right. He smiled, feeling hope kindle in his chest. Where there's a will, there's a way. They stayed in the garden until the shift changed and other people began to trickle in. As they walked back through the station corridors, Vela didn't hide her secondary arms anymore. She walked with her full height, all four hands relaxed at her sides, her antennae high. And when they passed other people in the corridor, Taemin noticed that she didn't shrink away anymore. She met their eyes, human and alien alike, with confidence. She was done apologizing for existing. She was done being afraid. and Taemin walked beside her, holding her hand, ready to face whatever came next together. The Thalreen delegation ship sat docked at the station's main port, ready for departure. In 3 days, it would leave, carrying the delegation back to their homeworld. The trade agreements had been signed. The cultural exchange programs had been established. Everything was complete. Everything except one decision. Vela stood in the delegation head's office, her 4 hands clasped together, trying to appear calm. Across the desk sat Ambassador Theron, the highest-ranking Thalreen official on the station. His plating was the preferred silver-white, gleaming under the office lights. His antennae were neutral, giving away nothing. "Let me make sure I understand your request correctly," Theron said in their native language. "You wish to remain on this station or transfer to other human stations to serve as a permanent cultural liaison?" "Yes, Ambassador." "This is highly irregular. Your assignment was temporary. There is important work waiting for you at home." "I understand, but I believe I can serve our people better by staying here. The relationship between humans and Thalreen is new. Having someone with experience in both cultures would be valuable." She kept her voice steady, professional. She did not mention Taemin. Not yet. Theron studied her for a long moment. "Kelris tells me you have formed an attachment to one of the humans, an engineer named Taemin. So much for not mentioning it." "Yes, that is true." "Romantic attachment?" "Yes." The silence stretched out, heavy and uncomfortable. Vela forced herself to keep her antennae up, to not show submission or shame. "You understand this would be seen as scandalous by many of our people," Theron said finally. "I understand. I am prepared for that. Your family will face questions, criticism." "I know." This was the part that hurt most. Her family had never been kind to her, but they were still family. Still the people who raised her. "Why?" Theron asked. "Why is this human worth such complications?" Vela took a breath. "Because he makes me happy. Because he sees me as I am and loves me anyway. Because for the first time in my life I feel like I can be myself without apology." She met Theron's eyes directly. "And because I am tired of living my life based on what others think I should be. And if I deny your request, if I order you to return with us, then I will return. I gave my word when I accepted this assignment. I will honor that." Her voice wavered slightly. "But I will request transfer again, and again, until you either approve it or tell me explicitly that it will never be approved." Something shifted in Theron's expression. His antennae tilted forward slightly, a sign of respect. "You have changed since we arrived here. You are more confident, more certain of yourself." "Yes, I have. Humans do that, I think. They have a way of making you question what you thought you knew." Theron tapped his fingers on the desk, thinking. "I will approve your transfer request." Vela's antennae shot up in surprise. "You will?" "On one condition. You will write quarterly reports on human culture and customs, detailed reports that will help prepare other Thalreen for interactions with humans. We need someone who truly understands both species, and you have proven yourself capable of that understanding." "Yes, absolutely. I will write whatever reports you need." Relief flooded through her. "And Vela, one more thing." Theron's voice softened slightly. "When you write to your family, tell them the truth. All of it. They may surprise you, and if they do not, then you will have done your duty by being honest. After that, their reactions are their own responsibility, not yours." "Thank you, Ambassador. Truly thank you." After she left the office, Vela stood in the corridor for a moment, hardly believing what had just happened. The transfer was approved. She could stay. She and Taemin could actually be together without the threat of forced separation hanging over them. She needed to tell him immediately. But when she tried to call him, his communicator went to voicemail. He was probably in a maintenance shaft somewhere, deep in the station where signals didn't reach well. She would have to wait until his shift ended. In the meantime, she had her own news to process. Across the station, Taman sat in an office he had never expected to enter. The head of the station's engineering corps, Director Park, sat across from him with a smile on her face. "It's a great opportunity, Taman. The new multi-species station being built in the Centauri system needs designers who understand different environmental requirements. You've done excellent work here, and your recommendations from the Thalreen delegation were glowing." Taman tried to focus on her words. A job offer. A promotion. The chance to design entire habitat systems instead of just maintaining them. It was everything he had been working toward for years. It was also on the other side of known space from this station. "When would I need to start?" he asked. "They're hoping for someone within the next 3 months. The sooner the better." Director Park leaned back in her chair. "You don't have to decide right now. Think about it. Talk to your family, your friends. But this kind of opportunity doesn't come along often." "I understand. Thank you for thinking of me." "You've earned it. Let me know your decision by the end of the week." Taman left the office in a daze. He should be thrilled. This was exactly the career advancement he had been hoping for. The job would let him combine engineering with design, would let him be creative in ways his current position didn't allow. But it would also mean leaving Vela, assuming she even stayed. She still hadn't heard back about her transfer request. For all he knew, she would be leaving in 3 days anyway, and this whole problem would be irrelevant. He found himself walking to the gardens without consciously deciding to go there. It had become their place, where they had important conversations. He sat on their bench and pulled out his sketch pad. Drawing helped him think. He started sketching without any particular goal, just letting his hand move. A habitat system took shape on the page, but not a standard one. This one had sections for different gravity levels, different atmospheric compositions, different temperature zones. A place where multiple species could live together, each in their own comfort zone, but connected through shared spaces. A place where difference wasn't a problem to solve, but a strength to build on. He was still drawing when Vela found him. "I have been looking for you everywhere," she said, slightly out of breath. "Your communicator went to voicemail, and Hayoon did not know where you were, and I thought maybe you were avoiding me, and—" "Vela, breathe." He set down his sketch pad. "What's wrong?" "Nothing is wrong. Everything is right. The transfer was approved." She sat down next to him, all 4 hands gesturing excitedly. "I can stay. I can work on human stations permanently. We can be together." The joy on her face made his heart ache. "That's amazing. I'm so happy for you." She must have heard something in his tone because her excitement dimmed slightly. "What is wrong? This is good news." "It is good news. Great news." He took her hands. "But I have news too. And it's complicated." He told her about the job offer, about the new station in Centauri, about the opportunity to actually design systems instead of just maintaining them, about the fact that it was his dream job, and about the fact that it was very, very far away. Vela was quiet when he finished. "When would you have to leave?" "Within 3 months." 3 months. She repeated the words like she was testing their weight. "That is not very long." "No, it's not." They sat in silence, both processing what this meant. "You should take the job," Vela said finally. "What?" "You should take it. It is your dream. You cannot give that up for me." She squeezed his hands. "I will not be the reason you abandon your passion again. But we just got the chance to be together. I'm not going to throw that away for a job." "It is not just a job, Taman. It is your future. Your calling." She turned to face him fully. "Do you remember what you told me? That I deserve to choose my own happiness? The same is true for you. You are my happiness." I am part of your happiness, but so is your work. So is creating and building and designing. She touched his face gently. We will find a way to make this work. Long-distance relationships exist. I can request transfers to stations near Centauri. You will have leave time to visit. There are options. You're being very calm about this. I am not calm. I am terrified, but I am also sure. She smiled, her mandibles relaxing. We did not fall in love to immediately give up at the first obstacle. We are stronger than that. Taman pulled her close, holding her tight. You're amazing. You know that? You tell me frequently. I am starting to believe it. They sat like that for a while, holding each other, finding comfort in contact. What if I requested a position on the Centauri station? Vela said suddenly. I have an approved transfer to human stations. It did not specify which stations. What if I specifically requested Centauri? Hope flickered in Taman's chest. Would they approve that? I do not know, but I can ask. She pulled back to look at him. We try. Yes. We keep trying until we make it work. Yes. We try. The next few days were a whirlwind of messages and meetings and planning. Vela submitted a request to be assigned to the Centauri station once it was operational. Taman accepted the job offer with the condition that he could have regular communication time with Earth and Thalreen stations. Hayun promised to send them both care packages and threatened to visit so often they would get sick of her. On the day the Thalreen delegation ship was scheduled to leave, Vela stood at the docking port with her belongings, but she wasn't boarding the ship. She was there to say goodbye to her colleagues, to Theron, to the life she had known. Kelrus was the last to say goodbye. He placed his hands on her shoulders in the traditional Thalreen gesture of blessing. Be happy, he said. Be brave. Be yourself. I will try to be all three. That is all anyone can ask. He glanced over at Taman, who stood a respectful distance away. Take care of her, human. She is precious. I know, Taman said. I will. The delegation boarded their ship, and the doors sealed. Vela watched through the viewport as the ship detached from the station and began its journey home. She felt a pang of sadness, but also something else, something that felt like freedom. Taman came to stand beside her, taking her hand. Are you okay? Yes. I am more than okay. She leaned against him. I am exactly where I want to be. 6 months later, Taman stood in his new office on the Centauri station, looking at his design plans spread across multiple screens. The station was coming together beautifully. Habitat zones for 17 different species, all interconnected through shared spaces. Gardens and labs and recreation areas designed for maximum accessibility. It was the most challenging project of his life. It was also the most rewarding. The door chimed and Vela entered, carrying tea and looking pleased with herself. I have good news, she said. The Thalreen government has approved my permanent assignment here. I am officially the cultural liaison for Centauri Station. That's fantastic. He pulled her into a hug. So you're not going anywhere? I am going exactly where you are going. For as long as you will have me. She set down the tea and looked at the design screens. Is that the new habitat for the Rigelians? Yeah. I'm trying to get the crystalline structure right. They need specific light refraction. He pulled up a different view. What do you think? She studied it carefully. The angles here could be sharper. Rigelians prefer more acute facets in their living spaces. He made the adjustment and she nodded in approval. This was their life now. Working together, building together, creating spaces where different species could thrive. It wasn't always easy. They still faced questions and skepticism from both humans and Thalreen. Long-distance communication with their families was complicated and sometimes painful, but they faced it together. Taman looked around his office at the sketches on the walls. Not just technical drawings, but art. Pictures of Vela, pictures of the stations they had worked on, pictures of the life they were building. He had his art back. He had his dreams back. And he had Vela. She caught him looking at the drawings and smiled. "What are you thinking about?" "How lucky I am. How glad I am that your environmental system malfunctioned that day." She laughed. "I did not malfunction it on purpose, but I am glad it happened too." "Are you happy?" He asked the question he asked her often, needing to hear the answer. "I am happy," she said firmly. "I am myself, and I am loved, and I am doing work that matters. What more could I ask for?" "Nothing. That sounds perfect." She moved to stand beside him at the window. Below them, the station bustled with life, dozens of species moving through the corridors, working and living and thriving together. "I am not beautiful like human women," Vela said softly, echoing words from months ago. Taman turned to look at her, at the deep violet of her plating, the elegant curve of her antennae, the intelligence shining in her compound eyes. "No," he agreed, pulling her close. "You're beautiful like yourself, and that's infinitely better." She leaned into him, all four arms wrapped around him, and they stood together looking out at the stars. Two people who had spent so long being told they didn't fit, finally finding where they belonged. Together.